Ex-wife walked away from CEO's $673 million empire to raise quadruplets he could never buy. "Daddy, do you like being with us?" The 7-year-old's voice cut through the marble silence of the $50 million penthouse like a knife through silk. Harrison Blackstone, CEO of a $673 million tech empire, froze. His phone, the device that had buzzed with another urgent business call, suddenly felt like a brick in his hand. "Of course I do, James. Why would you ask that?" "Because you always seem like you want to be somewhere else." The innocent observation shattered something inside Harrison's chest. Because his son was right. Even during their court-mandated visits, Harrison was mentally elsewhere, thinking about deals, strategizing solutions, planning their next activity instead of engaging with their current one. 3 years earlier, his wife Celeste had stood in his corner office, their 4-year-old quadruplets clinging to her legs, and delivered the words that would destroy his world. "I'm done, Harrison. We're leaving." "You can't be serious, Celeste. Where would you go? You have no money of your own, no career." "No, I have everything I need. I have my children, our children, and they belong here, in this family, in this life I've built for them. This isn't a life, Harrison. It's a prison made of gold." Welcome to Lux Love Chronicles with Mr. Wentworth. I'm your host, and I want to start by saying thank you. We're currently sitting at 21 subscribers, and every single one of you means the world to me. This channel is growing because of your support, and I deeply appreciate each like, comment, and share you give us. Before we dive into today's story, I want to say a quick prayer for all of you, my beloved subscribers. Heavenly Father, I ask that you bless each person watching this video today. Grant them peace in their hearts, strength for their challenges, and wisdom in their decisions. Surround them with love, protect their families, and guide them toward the abundant life you have planned for them. May they find joy in the simple moments and courage to pursue what truly matters. Amen. Now, let's dive into a story that will challenge everything you think you know about success, family, and what children really need from their parents. The marble floors of Blackstone Industries headquarters gleamed under crystal chandeliers as Harrison Blackstone stood in his corner office on the 58th floor. At 42, he commanded a tech empire worth $673 million. His facial recognition software powered everything from airport security to social media platforms. But today, the view of the city sprawling beneath him felt emptier than ever. It had been exactly 3 years since Celeste walked away from it all. Harrison's assistant, Margaret, knocked on his door. "Mr. Blackstone, your 2 p.m. is here." "Send them in," he replied, but his mind wasn't on the meeting. It was on that September morning when his world crumbled. Celeste Morrow Blackstone had been pacing in Harrison's office for 10 minutes before he finally looked up from his computer screen. "Celeste, what are you doing here? And why do you have the kids?" 4-year-old Emma clung to her mother's right leg, while Oliver held her left hand. Isabella sat quietly in one of the leather chairs, and James, the youngest by 3 minutes, was trying to climb onto Harrison's desk. "Sit down, Harrison. We need to talk." "Can't this wait? I'm in the middle of the Kaufman acquisition. Do you know how many millions are riding on?" "No, it can't wait." Celeste's green eyes blazed with a determination he'd never seen before. "I'm done, Harrison. We're leaving." Harrison laughed. The sound echoed off the marble walls. "Leaving? What do you mean leaving? You can't just leave. This is our life." "This isn't a life, Harrison. It's a prison made of gold. Are you out of your mind? Look around you. Look at what I've built for us, for them." He gestured toward the children. "Private jets, the best schools, unlimited resources." "When was the last time you read to them?" Celeste interrupted, her voice steady but sharp. "When was the last time you helped with homework or kissed a scraped knee or just sat with them without your phone in your hand? I provide for them everything they could ever want or need, except a father." The words hit him like a physical blow. James had wandered to the window and was pressing his small hands against the glass, looking down at the city far below. "I'm building this empire for them, so they'll never want for anything. They don't want your empire, Harrison. They want you." Emma tugged on her mother's dress. "Mommy, why is Daddy yelling?" Celeste knelt down and smoothed her daughter's hair. "Daddy's not yelling, sweetheart. He's just busy with work." "Daddy's always busy," Oliver said matter-of-factly. Harrison felt something cold settle in his chest. You're being dramatic, Celeste. This is how wealthy families operate. My mother had staff. Your mother was miserable, Harrison. She told me so herself before she died. She said she regretted letting your father turn parenting into a business transaction. Harrison's jaw clenched. That's different. I'm not my father. Aren't you? Celeste stood up, gathering Isabella in her arms. When was the last time you came home before the children were asleep? When was the last time you made it to a school event? When was the last time you had a conversation with them that wasn't interrupted by a phone call? After this deal closes, I'll have more time. Just give me 6 more months. Celeste stared at him for a long moment, something shifting in her expression. You said that about the last deal, and the one before that. There's always going to be another deal, isn't there? This is different. This is the big one. They're all the big one, Harrison. And meanwhile, our children are growing up without knowing their father. James had found a pen on Harrison's desk and was drawing on a stack of important documents. Any other day, Harrison would have been furious. Today, he barely noticed. You can't just take my children away from me. I'm not taking them away from you. I'm taking them away from this. She gestured around the opulent office. From a life where they have everything except what they actually need. And what exactly do they need that I'm not providing? Love that isn't transactional. Attention that isn't scheduled. A father who sees them as children, not future business assets. Harrison's phone buzzed with an urgent message about the acquisition. His hand moved toward it instinctively. Don't you dare, Celeste warned. Don't you dare answer that phone right now. But Harrison had already glanced at the screen. It's about the European deal. I have to. No, you don't. Celeste gathered Emma and Oliver by the hands. Come on, children. Say goodbye to Daddy. Where are we going, Mommy? Isabella asked. Home, sweetheart. We're going home. But this is home, Emma said, confused. No, baby. This is Daddy's office. Home is where people love each other more than they love their work. Harrison stood up abruptly. Celeste, you're not thinking clearly. Where will you go? You have no money of your own, no career, no way to support 4 children. I have everything I need. I have my children, our children, and they belong here, in this family, in this life I've built for them. Do they belong here, Harrison? Really? Celeste's voice broke slightly. Because I watch them every day, trying to get your attention, competing with your phone, your meetings, your deals. Emma draws pictures for you that you never see. Oliver scores goals that you never witness. Isabella asks me why Daddy doesn't like to play with her. I work to provide for them, and I'm tired of providing excuses for you. Harrison's phone buzzed again. This time, he ignored it, but the damage was done. Celeste had seen the way his eyes flicked toward it, the way his whole body tensed with the need to check the message. This conversation isn't over, he said finally. Yes, it is. Celeste walked toward the door with their children. When you're ready to choose them over your empire, you know where to find us. The elevator doors closed on his family, and Harrison was left alone in his marble palace, surrounded by all the symbols of his success and none of the people who were supposed to make it meaningful. 6 months later, Harrison found himself in a courthouse facing Judge Martinez, a stern woman in her 60s who seemed unimpressed by his wealth and status. Mr. Blackstone, his lead attorney, Robert Garrison, whispered in his ear, "We need to be strategic here. The emotional angle isn't working in our favor." Harrison had deployed an army of attorneys, convinced he could prove that Celeste was unfit to care for 4 children without the resources his wealth provided. How could she possibly manage their complex needs? Their private schools, their tutors, their medical care, their security? But Celeste had hired a single lawyer, a woman named Patricia Chin who specialized in family law, and built a case that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with love. Your Honor, Patricia said, standing before the bench, I'd like to play a recording that Mrs. Blackstone made of her 4-year-old son trying to call his father's office. Harrison's stomach dropped. He knew exactly what recording she was about to play. James's voice filled the courtroom, small and hopeful. Is my daddy there? I made him a picture. Can you tell him I love him? The secretary's response was polite but telling. Mr. Blackstone is in meetings all day, sweetheart. Why don't you give the picture to Nanny Sarah? But I made it for Daddy. It's a dragon. He likes dragons. I'm sure he does, honey. But Daddy's very busy with important grown-up work. Is his work more important than my dragon? The silence that followed was deafening. Judge Martinez removed her glasses and looked directly at Harrison. Mr. Blackstone, when was the last time you had a meaningful conversation with your son James? Harrison's throat felt tight. Your Honor, I speak with my children regularly during our scheduled. I asked about a meaningful conversation, not a scheduled interaction. We discussed their schooling, their activities, their futures. Do you know what James's favorite color is? The question caught him off guard. Blue. It's green, like his mother's eyes. Do you know what Emma wants to be when she grows up? A businesswoman? Like her father. She wants to be a teacher, so she can help children learn to read, because she says reading makes people happy. Harrison felt the walls closing in. Patricia Chin approached the witness stand where he sat. Mr. Blackstone, can you tell the court about the last time you attended one of Oliver's baseball games? I've been to several games. According to the team's attendance records, you've attended 2 games in the past 2 years. Both times, you left early for business calls. My work requires, can you tell the court about Isabella's art teacher, Ms. Rodriguez? I'm not familiar with Ms. Rodriguez has been Isabella's art teacher for 3 years. She says Isabella often creates paintings of her family, but in every single one, the father figure is either absent or significantly smaller than the other family members. Harrison looked across the courtroom at Celeste, who was sitting quietly with tears in her eyes. She wasn't looking at him with anger or hatred. She was looking at him with something worse, pity. Your Honor, Robert Garrison stood up. My client provides exceptional financial support for these children. They attend the finest schools, have access to the best medical care, and live in luxury that most children could never imagine. And yet, Judge Martinez replied, according to the testimony we've heard today, they would trade all of that luxury for one bedtime story from their father. Patricia Chin presented her final piece of evidence, testimony from the children's teachers. Mrs. Peterson, Emma's music teacher, took the stand. Emma is incredibly talented, but during our spring recital, I watched her scan the audience hopefully during her entire performance. When I asked her afterward who she was looking for, she said, I thought maybe Daddy would come this time. Coach Williams, Oliver's baseball coach, was next. Oliver asks me before every game if his dad might be there. I've had to watch this little boy's face fall game after game when he realizes his father isn't in the stands. Ms. Rodriguez, Isabella's art teacher, showed the court a series of family portraits Isabella had painted over the past year. In each one, Harrison's figure grew progressively smaller and more distant from the rest of the family. When I asked Isabella about this pattern, Ms. Rodriguez explained. She said, Daddy's there, but he's always far away, even when he's close. The final blow came when they played a video of James at his preschool graduation. The camera captured him on stage, waving enthusiastically at the audience. Hi, Daddy, he called out, even though Harrison wasn't there. I'm graduating. Are you proud of me? When Harrison didn't respond, because he wasn't there, James's face fell, and he quietly said to his teacher, maybe Daddy's watching on his computer. He watches everything on his computer. Judge Martinez listened to 6 weeks of testimony before making her ruling. Mr. Blackstone, your financial resources are impressive, and your success in business is undeniable. However, wealth alone does not make a parent. Mrs. Blackstone has demonstrated a level of emotional availability and commitment to these children's well-being that transcends monetary considerations. She awarded Celeste primary custody, with Harrison getting supervised visits every other weekend. Supervised visits, as if he were some kind of threat to his own children. The humiliation had been devastating, but Harrison had been confident it was temporary. Celeste would struggle financially, realize she'd made a mistake, and come crawling back within 6 months. He'd been wrong again. Instead of crumbling, Celeste had thrived. She'd moved the children to a small town called Millbrook, 2 hours upstate, where she'd rented a modest 4-bedroom house near the local elementary school. She'd taken a job at the town's small art museum, earning a fraction of what Harrison spent on his morning coffee, but she'd seemed happy. Harrison's first visit to their new home had been a shock. This is where you're living, he'd asked, looking around the tiny living room where all 4 children were doing homework at a single table. This is our home, Celeste had replied simply. The kids are sharing bedrooms. They're using hand-me-down furniture. That couch looks like it came from a thrift store. It did. Isabella picked it out. She said she liked the pattern. Celeste, this is ridiculous. I can buy you a proper house, with proper furniture, with rooms for everyone. We don't need a bigger house, Harrison. We need you to understand that happiness isn't measured in square footage. The children had adjusted too, which galled him more than anything. During his court-mandated visits, they'd chatter excitedly about their new school, their friends, their mother's work at the museum. Daddy, guess what? Emma had said during one visit, bouncing on her toes. I joined the school choir. We're singing at the winter concert. That's nice, sweetheart. I'll arrange for you to have private voice lessons with the best instructor in the city. Emma's face fell slightly. But I like singing with my friends at school. Professional training will be much better for your development. I don't want professional training. I want to sing with Sarah and Miguel and Ashley. Oliver had similar stories about Little League baseball. Mommy comes to all my games now. She cheers really loud. I'll hire a personal baseball coach for you. Someone who played professionally. But I like Coach Martinez. He teaches us about teamwork. A professional can teach you about winning. Coach Martinez says winning isn't everything. He says having fun with your team is more important. Harrison had tried to buy his way back into their affections. He'd shown up to Oliver's games in his Bentley, promising the team new uniforms and equipment if they won the championship. He'd offered to fund a new wing for Isabella's art center. He tried to convince Emma's choir director to let him arrange for them to perform at Carnegie Hall. But the children had seemed uncomfortable with his grand gestures, and worse, they'd started declining his offers. We don't need new uniforms, Daddy, Oliver had said gently during one visit. Our old ones work fine. The art center is perfect the way it is, Isabella had added. Even worse, they'd started asking pointed questions that his money couldn't answer. Why can't you come to my games without bringing presents? Oliver had asked. Why do you always want to make things bigger and fancier? Emma had wondered. Why can't you just be with us? James had whispered. The questions haunted him, but what truly devastated Harrison was watching another man step effortlessly into the role he'd never learned to fill. David Chun was a widowed high school English teacher with 2 children of his own. He coached the local soccer team, volunteered at the library, and had somehow become a fixture in Harrison's children's lives without spending a dime on elaborate gifts or experiences. Harrison had initially assumed the relationship wouldn't last. What could a small-town teacher offer a woman who had once had access to unlimited wealth? But months had passed, and David remained a steady presence in their lives. He reads to us, James had mentioned casually during one of their visits. Really good voices for all the characters. I can hire professional actors to come read to you, Harrison had replied. But Mr. David makes up different voices each time, and he lets us help tell the story. He taught me how to throw a curveball, Oliver had added. I'll arrange for private lessons with a former major league pitcher. Mr. David used to play in college. He shows me pictures from his old team, and he tells me stories about his games. He helps Mommy with cooking, and he doesn't check his phone during dinner, Emma had observed. Each innocent comment felt like a dagger to Harrison's chest. This man with his teacher's salary and unremarkable car was giving his children something Harrison couldn't seem to provide despite all his resources. Simple, consistent, undivided attention. Harrison had tried to compete. He'd hired actors to come to his house and perform private shows for the children. He'd arranged for cooking classes with celebrity chefs. He'd installed a state-of-the-art home theater system so they could watch movies together. But the children had seemed more interested in the simple cardboard box the theater equipment had arrived in than in the technology itself. They'd built a fort and played for hours while the expensive entertainment system sat unused. During one particularly expensive weekend, Harrison had hired a private chef, arranged for pony rides, and brought in a magician who'd performed at celebrities' birthday parties. This is amazing, Daddy, Isabella had said politely, but he could see the overwhelmed look in her eyes. Do you like it better than your regular weekends at home? He'd asked. Isabella had hesitated. It's very fancy, but I miss our movie nights where we make popcorn and Mom lets us build blanket forts. I can arrange for better movie nights. Private screenings, better movies, But I like the movies we pick together. And I like when we all squeeze onto the couch and Mom tells us stories during the boring parts. The final blow had come 6 months ago, during what was supposed to be a special weekend. Harrison had arranged for the children to stay at his Hamptons house, complete with a full staff and elaborate activities. He'd hired a private chef to make their favorite meals, arranged for a private screening of the latest blockbuster movie, and even brought in puppies from a local rescue for them to play with. But James had gotten sick, just a simple fever, and Harrison had panicked. "We need to call Dr. Richardson immediately," he'd told his assistant, "and contact the pediatric team at Mount Sinai. I want a full medical evaluation." "It's just a fever, Daddy," 7-year-old Emma had said, trying to comfort both her brother and her father. "Mommy just gives us medicine and cuddles when we're sick." "Medicine and cuddles don't require a medical degree," Harrison had snapped, his anxiety making him sharp. "We need to know exactly what's wrong." "But I'm not that sick," James had protested weakly. "I just have a tummy ache and I'm hot." "That could be anything. Appendicitis, bacterial infection, viral pneumonia." "Daddy, you're scaring him," Oliver had said quietly. By the time 3 doctors and 2 nurses had arrived to examine one mildly feverish child, James was in tears, Oliver was hiding, and the girls were asking to call their mother. Celeste had arrived within 2 hours, still in her museum work clothes, and had calmly assessed the situation. "Thank you all for coming," she'd said politely to the medical team. "But this won't be necessary. Mrs. Blackstone, we should at least run some preliminary tests," one of the doctors had begun. "He has a low-grade fever and ate too much ice cream earlier. He'll be fine with some children's acetaminophen and a good night's sleep." She'd sent the medical team home, given James some medicine, and settled down to read to him until his fever broke. Harrison had watched from the doorway as his son relaxed in his mother's arms, his breathing evening out as she read from a well-worn copy of Where the Wild Things Are. It was a book Harrison recognized, one his own mother had read to him as a child. But he couldn't remember the last time he'd read anything to his children that wasn't an educational text or business-related material. "This is what they need," Celeste had said quietly when she'd noticed him watching. "Not medical teams or specialists or elaborate productions. Just presence. Just love." "I do love them," Harrison had protested. "I know you do. But you love them the way you love your business, by trying to optimize and control and improve everything instead of just being with them." That night, after the children had fallen asleep, Harrison and Celeste had their first real conversation since the divorce. "I don't know how to just be with them," he'd admitted, the words feeling like glass in his throat. "I see problems to solve, needs to meet, futures to secure. When Oliver mentions wanting a bicycle, I research the best bikes and safety equipment and training programs. When Emma talks about wanting to try piano, I start calling the best instructors in the city. I don't know how to just listen." "You could learn," Celeste had said softly. "It's not too late." "How?" "I've built my entire life around action, around results, around making things happen. How do I just stop?" "You start small. You put away your phone. You ask questions and wait for complete answers. You let them teach you about their world instead of trying to improve it." Harrison had wanted to try, had promised himself he would change, but old habits proved stronger than good intentions. Within a week, he was back to his old patterns, scheduling instead of spontaneity, optimizing instead of accepting, controlling instead of connecting. The realization had come during last month's visit, when 7-year-old James had asked him a question that stopped Harrison cold. They were sitting in Harrison's penthouse living room. James was coloring while Harrison answered emails on his phone. The other children were with their court-appointed supervisor in another room. "Daddy, just a minute, James. I need to finish this message." "Daddy, do you like being with us?" Harrison's fingers froze over his phone screen. "Of course I do. Why would you ask that?" "Because you always seem like you want to be somewhere else." The innocent observation had shattered something inside Harrison's chest. Because James was right. Even during their scheduled time together, Harrison was mentally elsewhere, thinking about deals, strategizing solutions to business problems, planning their next activity instead of engaging with their current one. "I'm here with you right now," Harrison had said, But even as he spoke the words, his phone buzzed with another message, and his eyes flicked down to the screen. James had noticed. "See? You're here, but you're not really here. I'm working hard so I can give you and your sisters and brother everything you need." "We don't need everything, Daddy. We just need you." Harrison had tried to protest, to explain that he was working hard for their benefit, but James had already lost interest and wandered away. That night, Harrison had called his therapist, Dr. Rebecca Santos, in tears. "I don't know how to be present. I don't know how to just exist in the moment with them. My mind is always racing, always planning, always trying to optimize everything." When was the last time you felt truly present? Not performing or achieving or managing, but just being. Harrison had thought for a long time before answering. "I honestly can't remember." "That's the work we need to do, Harrison. You spent your entire life in your head, in the future, in the realm of strategy and control. But your children live in their hearts, in the present moment, in the realm of connection and feeling. You're speaking different languages. How do I learn their language? The same way you learned everything else, through practice and commitment. But this time, you have to be willing to be bad at it for a while. You have to be willing to fail without trying to immediately fix or improve the failure." The concept terrified Harrison. His entire identity was built around competence, around mastery, around turning every challenge into a victory. The idea of accepting incompetence, even temporarily, felt like asking him to cut off a limb. But the alternative, losing his children entirely, was even more terrifying. 3 months ago, he'd made one final attempt to win them back. He'd purchased a house in Millbrook, a sprawling estate on 50 acres complete with a pool, tennis court, and stables. His plan had been to offer Celeste and the children a lifestyle that combined his resources with their preferred location. He'd driven up to their modest rental house on a Saturday morning, architectural plans and property deeds in hand. Celeste had listened to his proposal with the same polite attention she'd give any museum visitor asking about an exhibit. "You're missing the point, Harrison. This was never about the location. It was about priorities. You want to solve our family with real estate, but the problem isn't where we live, it's how you live." "What do you mean?" "You're still thinking like a CEO. You see a problem, our separation, and you want to acquire your way out of it. Buy a bigger house, provide better amenities, upgrade the situation until it meets your standards. But relationships don't work that way. Then how do they work?" Celeste had studied his face for a long moment, and Harrison had seen something that looked almost like pity in her eyes. They work through showing up. Day after day, moment after moment, choice after choice. They work through being present even when it's boring or inconvenient or unprofitable. They work through putting the other person's needs ahead of your own agenda. I do put their needs first. You put your idea of their needs first. There's a difference. The children had been playing in the small backyard, their laughter drifting through the open window. Emma was teaching James how to braid dandelions into a crown. Oliver was reading a book under a tree. Isabella was drawing with sidewalk chalk. Look at them, Harrison. Really look at them. When was the last time you saw them this relaxed and happy during one of your visits? Harrison had to admit that during their scheduled time together, the children often seemed polite but distant, going through the motions of spending time with him while clearly wishing they were back home. They're happy here because this is where they feel safe to just be children. No schedules, no activities, no pressure to perform or impress. Just childhood. I can give them childhood. I can give them better childhood than this. Can you? Because childhood isn't something you can purchase or arrange. It's something that happens when children feel secure enough to explore, to play, to be silly, to make mistakes without consequences. Harrison had left that conversation feeling more frustrated than ever. How could he convince Celeste that his way of loving, through providing and achieving and securing their futures, was valid? How could he make her understand that his drive to succeed was motivated by his desire to give their children every possible advantage? But as the months passed and his relationship with his children continued to deteriorate, Harrison began to wonder if Celeste was right. Maybe his children didn't need every possible advantage. Maybe they just needed their father. Standing in his office now, 3 years after Celeste had walked away, Harrison finally understood what she had been trying to tell him all along. She hadn't walked away from his empire because she didn't appreciate its value. She'd walked away because she'd recognized that the empire was consuming the man she'd married and the father her children needed. And she'd been right. His children couldn't be bought because they didn't want to be bought. They wanted to be loved, and loved in a way that Harrison had never learned how to give. The question that haunted him now was whether it was too late to learn. His phone buzzed with another urgent message, another crisis that required his immediate attention, another opportunity that could add millions to his net worth. For the first time in his adult life, Harrison Blackstone ignored it. Instead, he picked up his personal phone and scrolled to Celeste's number. His fingers hesitated over the keyboard. He'd made so many demands, so many proposals, so many grand gestures. What could he say now that would be different? Finally, he typed a simple message. Would it be okay if I came to James's baseball game this Saturday? Just to watch, not to change anything or fix anything. Just to be there. Her response came quickly. He'd like that. Game starts at 10 a.m. No helicopters or photographers, please. Harrison almost smiled. She knew him too well. Just me. I promise. Good. That's all he wants. Just his dad in the stands, cheering for him. As he gathered his things to leave the office, something he hadn't done before sunset in years, Harrison realized that this might be the most important business meeting of his life. And for once, success wouldn't be measured in dollars or market share or competitive advantage. It would be measured in whether his son smiled when he saw his father in the stands, and whether Harrison could resist the urge to pull out his phone when that smile appeared. Saturday morning arrived gray and overcast, but Harrison was at the Millbrook Little League field by 9:45 a.m. He'd driven himself, no driver, no security detail, no entourage. Just him in his regular car, wearing jeans and a baseball cap instead of his usual suit. The field was nothing like the professional training facilities he'd researched for Oliver. The grass was patchy, the bleachers were metal and uncomfortable, and the concession stand was run by volunteers selling hot dogs and soda. But when Oliver spotted him in the stands, the boy's face lit up with a joy Harrison hadn't seen in years. "Dad, you came. You really came." Harrison waved, and for once, his phone stayed in his pocket. The game wasn't perfect. Oliver struck out twice and missed an easy fly ball. But he also hit a solid single in the fifth inning and made a great play at second base. And through it all, Harrison was there, not making business calls, not strategizing improvements, not researching better coaches. Just watching his son play baseball. When the game ended, Oliver's team lost 8-6. The boy ran straight to Harrison. "Did you see my hit, Dad? Did you see when I tagged that runner out?" "I saw everything," Harrison said, and realized it was true. For 2 hours, he'd been completely present, completely focused on nothing but his son's game. "Can you come to my next game too? If you want me there, I'll be there. I want you there every time." As they walked toward Celeste's car, Oliver chattered excitedly about the game, about his teammates, about plans for next season. Harrison listened, really listened. Without offering suggestions for improvement or researching better training programs. "Thank you," Celeste said quietly as they reached her car. "For what?" "For just being his dad today. I should have been doing this all along. You're doing it now. That's what matters." As Harrison drove home, he realized something had shifted. The urgent emails on his phone didn't seem as urgent anymore. The deals that had felt so critical that morning felt less important than the memory of Oliver's smile when he'd spotted his father in the stands. It wasn't much, but it was a start. And maybe, if he could learn to be present for one baseball game, he could learn to be present for a lifetime of moments that mattered more than any empire he'd ever built. The quadruplets he lost weren't gone forever. But winning them back would require him to become a different kind of man than he'd ever been before, one who understood that the most valuable things in life couldn't be acquired, only earned through the simple but profound act of showing up with an open heart and quiet mind. Whether Harrison Blackstone, master of the universe and conqueror of markets, could transform into the father his children needed remained to be seen. But for the first time in years, he was willing to try. And perhaps that willingness was worth more than his entire $673 million empire. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and let me know in the comments. What's the most valuable gift you've ever received from a parent? Was it something money could buy, or was it simply their presence? And if you want to hear more stories about love, family, and what truly matters in life, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell. Together, we're building a community that values connection over possessions, and I'm grateful you're part of this journey. Until next time, remember, the most precious things in life can't be purchased. They can only be given through love.